So, yeah, let's get down to day 4 of the ANC's elective conference. There's a reason why we've chosen this position this morning, as Aaron Bates will tell us. The similarities between last night's World Cup and Soccer City there in the background, Aaron, they couldn't be more apt as vote counting begins today.
Yes, and a bit of a messy business. Voting only got going yesterday after 2 in the afternoon. By 11, they were halfway through voting, we heard. KZN, some of the voting from those delegates having taken place. Eastern Cape, the second biggest province, hadn't even begun voting. And it's 4,426 voting delegates here at the conference. They all need to complete their voting. That will take place with observers from the party and independent observers. The votes then need to be counted, and then we're expecting the announcement, we're told, during the morning plenary today.
So we have been getting some kind of sense of where we are insofar as provinces and which way they are likely to vote, right? There are a few provinces that perhaps we can talk about now. Shall we say that they have flipped or they have possibly flipped? Let's begin with the Northwest. The province says that Mkhize, and of course this is because we have ears to the ground here at conference, that there's been a lot of lobbying from Mkhize for that position of the top post.
Yes, and not only Northwest, also Limpopo. We have heard from the spokesperson that the official position is still to back Cyril Ramaphosa for ANC president, but there is a disparity there. Some branches pushing back now, flip-flopping or turning their position toward Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Also in Gauteng, some disparity, it seems, between different parts of the province. And in fact, we do have input from Kgosi Maepa of Gauteng. He's in the Tshwane part of the province, and this is what he had to say on this very issue.
90% of voting delegates like myself as a voting delegate, we come from branches and we are instructed by branches. Here there is nothing, it's only branches that decide. So there are going to be branches of the ANC who are going to carry their branch mandates. And I can tell you, in Gauteng, majority of branches, you know the nominations, they came out to support Comrade President Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm carrying that mandate from my branch. My branch has decided to nominate and vote for Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. So that's what we are going to do. So if any other view comes that is contrary to the branch's view, it must go back to branches. So there's no time now to go back to branches and change the branch view. The branch view is going to prevail, and I can tell you that the branch view here in Gauteng is a branch view that we must elect. There are some, of course, that are not going to support President Ramaphosa, but majority of branches in Gauteng clearly are supporting President Ramaphosa.
Yeah, so Messina, as you say in Gauteng, breaking rank in some respects, saying that the province is now backing Mkhize, and of course we just heard there Tshwane denying that, saying that delegates will stick to the decision or the way that branches have been instructed to vote, and that's with backing Cyril Ramaphosa. I just want to backtrack a bit, Aaron, because it's very interesting how, with a province like Limpopo, for example, when it was time for nominations in the build-up to this elective conference, Limpopo was actually the first province to come out and nominate any candidate, and at the time it was Cyril Ramaphosa. So what would have happened in the interim? We also talk about 24 hours is a very long time in politics.
Yes. Well, the thing here is that, and we heard from Khopetse Chikane talking about this dynamic now between branches and provincial structures. So the sort of tensions and flip-flopping or kind of pushing and pulling that emerges as branches are disgruntled when their candidates aren't on those lists that are doing the rounds about who's in the final kind of like desirable leadership of the ANC top 7. And so if provinces feel like, well, our guy, our gal, our person is not there in what is effectively a slate, we're not willing to back the rest of this group on the list. And so that's what we're seeing with Limpopo. The issue of deputy president is a key one. You know, we've got the likes of Lamola there. We've got this dispute around whether or not it's going to be Oscar Mabuyane. It's understood that a lot of people who are lobbying for Ramaphosa's sort of core for the ANC leadership want Mabuyane to be deputy. And if that happens, that's going to potentially alienate Limpopo branches. And we do know that, for example, when it comes to Treasurer General, that Messina has in fact pulled out, and he's bringing his weight now to Pule Mabe for that position. Mabe is against Bajani Chauke, advisor to the president, and also Gwen Ramakgopa. And this is the whole issue of how people who fall out of play then add their backing to other candidates. Let's just have a listen.
We have been engaging with the leadership of provinces, the leadership of Gauteng, and we have agreed that we should support Comrade Bule as the TG. We've demobilized, as you know, that we all had fully fledged campaigns going on in the structures of the organization. So we've agreed to give him support. Unfortunately, at the time we agreed, comrades, so that we can clarify this, the ballot was printed and some people were already voting. But we've demobilized so that we don't divide our support in as far as the outcome in the position of the Treasurer General is concerned.
All right, so shall we talk about, you mentioned Oscar Mabuyane and sort of the political power plays happening there. He's in the running for the position of Deputy President, and that becomes important when we look at the province he's from, the Eastern Cape.
Indeed, Eastern Cape's second biggest province on the list in terms of voting delegates. It's 657 delegates from the Eastern Cape. Paul Mashatile also in the running for Deputy President, a strong contender, strong from Gauteng. And the issues there between hearing Lamola, Mabuyane and Mashatile all in the running. And at this point, what we're hearing and what we've indeed seen, because Mondli Gungubele was caucusing with ANC members at the conference yesterday, saying Mabuyane is who we want. And so drawing in that support. So they'll gain the Eastern Cape there, but they may well lose a lot of Limpopo branch voters, branch delegates who are voting because of that decision. And this is where, again, Chikane's comments were interesting, Michelle, because in the past, when things worked differently at conference, effectively once you chose your leader, you copied and pasted that voting dynamic all the way down the list of then top 6, now it's top 7. But it's no longer a case of wash, rinse, repeat. Because branch delegates have more clout, more kind of power in voting dynamics, they're then playing at these very issues you've been asking about in terms of like, why are they flipping? Why are there these contradictions in terms of what some PEC members are saying, Lebogang Maile, for example, in Gauteng, versus what we heard from the chair in Tshwane. And that's how all of these dynamics are playing out. So as things stand right now in front of the soccer stadium, the match is on. Yeah. The match is on. We're seeing replacements happening, and we're going to need to find out when we get to the voting sort of outcomes, who's going to lead the ANC? Is it going to be ANC President Dr. Zweli Mkhize? And could that then mean President of South Africa, Dr. Zweli Mkhize? It's very much up in the air, and I dare say that the sort of race for the leadership position, among others, is tighter than it was looking at the beginning of this conference.
I mean, if we look at the numbers, because that's what it is, right? It's a numbers game. Going into conference, Cyril Ramaphosa had pretty much a comfortable cushioning insofar as the position of president is concerned, and to secure his second term in office. As you crunch these numbers around branches, we've been talking about branches flipping, how many branch delegates are voting one way or another way, it does feel like that gap between Cyril Ramaphosa and Zweli Mkhize is narrowing. The question is, by how much?
Indeed, and it depends on who you ask. And of course, some of this is perception. So when we hear, for example, that the likes of Lindiwe Sisulu are moving in a certain direction, how much weight does that actually carry in terms of voting branch numbers? There are big personalities in the ANC, and South Africa typically has a very personality-driven politics. But in terms of voting and delegates' actual position and sentiment, there are all sorts of other factors in play. You know, we've spoken about the issue of money changing hands, about cash moving around, also lobbying people in private meetings. All of this is playing into the dynamics which are unfolding as we speak. And then add on top of that, Michelle, how fatigued everybody is, and the dynamics, the tension, the sort of pressure that's building. Once we have the announcement, we will have some of that relieved. And then it's a matter of smoothing over all the disgruntlement that may follow.
Yeah. Aaron Bates, as always, thanks very much indeed for giving us some excellent analysis of the numbers and where we are now. Of course, if Cyril Ramaphosa Ayanda loses out to his rival for that position of President of the ANC, Zweli Mkhize, it would make him the first ANC president after Nelson Mandela not to go in for a second term. And of course, we know Madiba at the time did that of his own volition. He was always going to serve one term. So the president this morning, as we stand with Soccer City in the background, he doesn't want a Mbappe hat-trick. He just wants his second term.
Michelle Craig, thanks very much indeed. For once, I get all the sports references, so we've done a good job on the air report. Thanks very much once again, Michelle and the rest of the team. That's just there from Nashville.